Hi there guys, Tony here from Caveman Props. Well, we're back to the tutorials now, so we're going to be doing one of them for you today, and another one. I seem to be doing a lot of weapons this recently, but I will change that one, but I want to get this one done and out of the way. We are going to be doing the phaser from StarTrek Discovery. If you've seen the new series, it's kind of a bit of a retro design, because obviously this is a prequel, this is going back. I quite like this design because I kind of feel that it fills a gap, because if you sort of follow Star Trek, you'll know that with the original you had a pilot episode that came out, and this was under the command of Captain Christopher Pike, and the weapons they had then were more laser guns, and it was sort of a classic design. But by the time they came to make the actual series, we'd moved on, you had Captain Kirk and they had the phasers, and because this is supposed to be set somewhere in between, as season 2 of Discovery showed, the events of the pilot had already happened, so this was going in between the two. So the phaser kind of has a relevance of the original gun leading to the phaser, so it's kind of a stepping stone between the pilot one and to Captain Kirk's phaser. So I kind of quite like this design, so we're going to work on this and see how close we can get to it. Now, I've done a template for this. You might be thinking this template looks a little bit small, because this template is going to be the eternal core we're going to add to this to build it up. So that's what we're going to be working on with that. So I've used some internet pictures and kind of got the dimensions, brought it down to what I think the core needs to be, and then we're going to work from that. So we're going to take this into the workshop and get this onto some foam, and we're going to start cutting out and start adding and see how close we can get. Right, there are some roadworks going on just down the road, so I do apologise if you can hear that. I'm trying to use the lapel mic to limit that a little bit. So what I've done is I've taken some 10mm foam here and I've stuck 3 pieces of it together to try and create 15. I'm using this one. This has got a not quite so bumpy texture. Well, it is a bumpy texture, but it's not quite so prominent, so there's no need for me to sand it down. It sticks together quite well that way, so there's no real gaps. And then what I've done is on one side I have drawn around my template with that on. So what I'm going to do now is get this on the scroll saw, cut this bit out, and then that's going to give us our main base for this, and then we can start adding and shaping this to fit what we want to do. So I'm going to get on with that now, and then come back to the next stage. Okay, so we've cut that out with the scroll saw. It's gone a little bit off on a couple of the bits, but it's always a good reason to go slowly and cutting foam through the scroll saw. But that's our main base now for the phaser. So what we're going to do is I'm going to get out my Dremel with the sanding drum on it. I'm going to attempt to curve this bit just a little bit, and then bring that round and just create some little curves on the edges of the handle here. They don't have to be great because it's going to be covered. So so we just need to get the rough shape from that, and then what we're going to do is going to work on how we're going to cover it. Right, so there we are. We managed to get the curves in there. Obviously this was my first attempt, and once I kind of got the hang of it, I kind of got it a lot better. So we managed to curve it there. You really have to hold on to this, because a couple of times it went flying right across the workshop. It didn't have a good enough hold. The sanding just suddenly takes away from you when you've got an automatic sander. I'd have probably got a much better finish if I'd have had something like a belt sander or something like a spindle sander, but obviously I don't have one of them, so the Dremel with the little drum sander was the best I had. I strapped it to the worktop, had a hoover hose to take a lot of the dust away, and obviously wearing a mask as well. I recommend going with the direction of the disc rather than going against it, because that's where you will get this more lumpy effect. So there we go. So now we need to cover this. In order to cover it, we're going to have to template it. So our first job is we're going to cover the areas we want to template. I'm going to cover them with masking tape, and then we're going to go over that with a little bit of duct tape just to hold it in place. And once we've got that done, I can draw the items on it that we then need to cover it with. So I'm going to crack on with that and then show you what areas we're going to need to be covered. Right then, so what I've done is I've covered this area, because this is the main area I want to concentrate on at the moment, with masking tape and then gaffer tape. The reason I do the masking tape first is because the gaffer tape will stick quite well to the foam. The masking tape doesn't, but won't hold together quite so well, so we cover it with the masking tape first, then we stick the gaffer tape to the masking tape to give it some hold, and then we're able to make templates from that. So, our first template is kind of going to be the items on the handle. So we're going to create a bit that goes up the side here, to the meat, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring that back round to meet the back of the handle there. It's going to be a bit like that, so we're going to replicate that on this side. I could just do one side and then move it back, so it's going to be a bit like that, and obviously this is the bit that will have the hand grips in, but I'm going to sort them out later to give you an idea. It's going to have little bits in it like that to create the handle. So that's going to be that. So what I'm going to probably have to do is I'm probably have to cut it down there, cut this bit out. We're going to have the bit on the back here as well. So I'm going to template that now. And then you see that would all stick to that, so that will be the detailing on the handle. And around here we're going to have another bit that goes on the front here to give that a bit of extra space. I might actually bring that back a little bit more, so if I put a marking on there and there, we're going to bring that back. What I'll do is I'll leave a little bit of edgeway so it can be retrimmed off there, but these are the main bits. So now we've done that, I'm going to take a nice sharp scalpel and carefully we're going to cut these bits out, and hopefully it will come off as a template. So I'm probably going to have to cut up there to create that curve bit, but that will all make sense once we come to template it off. So working this now, it's a brand new blade I've just put in here, so this should go through quite nicely, and because these bits will also cover, if I make a marking in the foam, it will all cover it up later. Alright, so I cut those bits out and I've stuck them down to a piece of paper. This bit didn't quite go according to what I had in my head. In my head I thought it was going to go down and those two bits were going to fan out that way. It didn't, it kind of went in there so they would have crossed over. So I'm not going to be able to do that in one piece, so I've had to cut it all the way down the middle here. I'm going to do it in two pieces, they will then get stuck together up to there and then get wrapped around this bit of the handle. So that's what we're going to do. So there's obviously a few little markings on there where I've cut. We can use them as guidelines, and then other bits are going to go around it. And obviously this is the back of the handle. So I'll now cut these again out of the paper. That will then give us a more rigid template. And I'm going to put these onto some 5mm foam, cut them out, and we're going to put them together and see what we can do in regards to the detailing, and start getting them onto the main handle. Right, there we go. So I cut the templates out of the paper and then use them to draw these onto the foam. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave these bits and I'm going to cut the main details here. I shouldn't do it, and obviously this is the back bit, and I've already done the detailing on here. Use a little bit of plastic tube, cut the two ends out using that to create my curve, and then with the ruler and the scalpel cut the lines out in between, so then that should give me the sort of grip effect. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick these two bits together first and then repeat this using this as a guide, just so hopefully once it goes on they will all line up. That's the plan anyway. So we're going to get these cut out as well and see how it all goes. Get these bits stuck together and try and get these detailings on. Okay, so we cut that out, and I've glued these two bits up as far as I can to here, and then what I've done is I've put this over the top, trying to run it up, and using the tube I've literally just marked here where they're going to go, so then we can repeat that and we can get these bits cut out, but hopefully that will be stable enough, and then that will go around the handle. So we're going to get these bits cut out and then we're going to try and get it onto our main section of the gun. Right, okay, so I managed to get that on. That was quite fiddly once you get round there, but I have got it on. What I've done is obviously I'm going to trim these bits off so then that all lines up. It's started raining, so I hope you can't hear that on the mic. I'm going to put the back bit on. Actually, I'm going to do that first and then trim all this bit up, and then there's going to be some more to add to the front there, and we start on some more adding onto the back here and start adding some details to it. Right, so we've got that all on and I've trimmed that off, so that's starting to look more like the proper phaser now. It's got the details on the handle, and the handle feels a little bit better, much thicker on that, but we're going to add a bit more to the front here. And what I've done is I've just wrapped a piece of paper around it and marked it out, so I've kind of marked out that bit. That's what we're going to do, and I'm going to draw that out on a piece of foam, double it over. I'm going to extend one bit, because what we're going to do is going to wrap around and it's going to go across the top. So I'm going to cut it out the foam. I'm also going to bevel this front edge here, so we'll have a bevel, so then we'll put another piece on the front here and there will literally just be one seam around the end of it. But I'll explain that and show you that as we go along. So you can get this onto the foam, cut it out, and we'll start adding it to this one. Alright, so there we go, so I cut that out, and obviously I'm leaving these bits so I can trim them off exactly to it, but this is the bit we want and this is the bit we want. When I cut this, I put the ruler down. Instead of keeping the scalpel straight, I put the scalpel at a 45-degree angle, and that's given me a nice little bevel edge around here. And what I've done is I've measured it off here. What we're going to do is we're going to start from the inside bit there, so the bevel will overstick the edge, and I'm going to glue that all the way around like that to start with, and then obviously this glues around there. But then obviously what I can do is I can cut out a piece this exact shape, bevel it in the opposite way, and it will stick in there against that and give us a flat edge there, and literally just one seam around the edge. You're not going to have, be able to see all these bits of the layered up foam. It's going to hide all of that. So I'm going to get this on, get that bit cut, put it all together, and then we'll start working on this back step. Right, so there we go, we've got that on, and I've managed to do the end bit, and as you can see it's kind of sealed that off, so we literally just have the one seam round here and a little one there, so that's not really that noticeable there at all. All this is going to be covered up by the section in there. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do a bit on the back here. We're going to cover that, and then we'll work on our section that will go in here. We're going to build that separately, and then that's going to go in, and then what I will call the barrel to go on the end. Okay, right, so to cover this back section here, I've drawn out this onto the same strip of foam that I've been doing all the rest of the work on, so we're using nothing to waste here. And the easiest way to make a template for this bit was I've just literally just laid it on and drawn around it. And what I've done is I've used the marker that's up to there, but I've left the marker gap between it, so I've lined it up, so I've got an area. This will become apparent in a minute as I start to cut it. So what I'm going to be doing is these two bits are going to be joined together. So very simply, so I'm going to take it from in there, and with the scalpel, instead of putting it in this way, I'm going to put it in an angle there and draw it through. I'm going to do the same on both. I think we go that way actually. So, doing that. Obviously this bit I'm going inwards to it, so I have to be careful where I stop. And then the same with these ones. And what that will do, that will give us then the beveled edges, so we would be able to actually cut and join the bits together. Right, so once you have that cut out, we have the beveled edges, which will be great for when that glues together. Obviously I've left these little bits a little bit over because I can still trim them afterwards, but what we've got now is we have to make this bend, and obviously as I try and bend that, we kind of get a bit of a curve there, but it's a bit too much than what I want. So what I'm going to do is I've marked off the bit on the back here, and what we're going to do is we're actually going to cut a small trench out. So I'm going to line that up, that and the cut from that. use the scalpel, but I'm literally going to use the tip. Go in a little bit and cut at an angle just into the foam. Okay. And what I'll do is I'll turn that round. Mark where that is, and then do the same back the opposite way. The beauty of that is we should then get this little triangular trench come out, and then that should be easier then for us to glue, and we'll make a slightly better turn with that for when we glue it. So I'm going to get this done, and then that should be ready to go on. So I've got that on. So we cut the trench down there. We'd also cut a trench in the bit going across here, so we got the nice bend in that, and then that went on quite now. It just overlaps just a little bit, but I'm not worried by that, because that's going to fit in quite nicely. I did have a slight problem here when I bent it. The foam started to split a little bit. I cut the trench just a little bit too deep, and that's the problem, but I've been able to just glue that back down, put that back together. So it gives me a little bit of what looks like a seam there, but that's not going to be too much. But overall, that's going to be quite good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my reference pictures. We're going to look at the detail that now goes on this. We're going to add the details on and around here, and then we're going to build the section that goes in the middle here. Alright, so I'm going to start adding the details here. When I do projects like this, I intend to keep little bits and pieces back because they can become quite handy. So when I use a tube to create a hole in a piece of foam, which I need to, like I did here, I intend to keep some of the pieces that come out the middle. They come in handy every now and then. I'm going to use some here. So the ones that I took out the bit for the handle here, from the small little tube, I've got these that came out the middle of it. These would be perfect for the little detail that sits on the back here. There'll be one either side. So those are going to be good for that. I'm going to use one of these. I'm going to trim it down. That's going to be the little nobule that goes on there. There'll be one front and there as well. We also have one on the back here, and what I'm going to do for that, I've got this larger one. I'm going to trim this down, so I've only got a small part of it. I've also got this one. I'm going to trim this one down as well, and that's going to be stuck on the middle of that one to create the detail that's going to go on the back here. So I'm going to trim all them down, get them glued on, and I'm going to try and find something that will work for the trigger. So I've added the little details to that. I'm going to give you like a little piece of advice and a warning here. Working with EVA foam, your blades will get blunt very quickly. It tends to dull scalpel blades and box cutter blades very, very quickly. So you constantly have to keep changing them or sharpening them, and it goes, which I intend to do, but when I was coming to cut these little bits, I hadn't changed the scalpel blade, and I tried to cut one, and it just didn't go right. I changed the scalpel blade, and it cut straight away really nice. So nice sharp scalpel blades work brilliantly, but you do have to keep constantly changing them. When I do projects like this, I buy scalpel blades in like the hundreds just because of the amount that we will physically go through. So I've added the details here and my little button, and I've now added the little strip details that go around the edge here with some much thinner foam. If you can't get the small thinner foam, or you don't want to go out and buy a whole strip just for this, the little tip is you take your 5mm foam, using the ruler and a really sharp scalpel. You want to cut a little strip off of about 2mm, and then what you want to do is you want to lay it on its side, and then you want to cut it down the middle, so you'll end up with 2 bits like that as you cut it, and then that's your thinner bits of foam for working details. Saves you having to buy a big sheet of it just to make some small little details. I have foam in all different shapes, sizes and colours, well, mostly grey and black, but all different thicknesses and densities as well, so for whatever we're working on. So right, I've done the details here. We're going to work on the middle section here and then the barrel, and then hopefully everything will be ready for painting. Right then, so I've moved on a little bit and started work on this section. So using this gun, I've kind of measured the space that I needed to get it in, and then obviously brought it in 5mm because we're going to cover it again in the 5mm foam. So I made it a bit smaller than it needed to be, and then cut this section out. If you remember when I did the main body of the gun, this was the bit that sat just under here, so I kind of, the 3 layers again, unwasted that little bit there. So we cut that out. I used the scroll saw to cut the shape there and there. Used the scroll saw to cut this bevel bit at the back and then just to curve the top. Then using the sander again, I've just beveled off the edges just to create a bit of a curve. I then compared it to this and realised that I was actually under the 5mm either side, so I've stuck a piece of 5mm on the end there, and that should give me the right size and shape because this is now going to be covered. And what I'm going to do is I've got another piece of 5mm foam, but this is not as dense as the other foam that I've been using. It's a lot more stretchy, a lot more usable. So what I'm thinking is that this is going to stretch around this bit. I'm only going to have to make a couple of cuts in it to create seams, but the rest of it will pretty much just fold round and bend to it, so there won't be too much, and it will create the correct shape that we need. So well, I'm going to try and see what I can do with that, and it should be ready to fit in here and add the details to this. Alright, so I've managed to get that covered. It was quite, it was a little bit fiddly, I will admit that. So we've got a seam here and a seam here which I've cut, and a seam here and a seam down the bottom here. The bottom obviously looks a bit like a dog's dinner because I was trying to work it round as I was going. But the top and the sides kind of look alright, and that's really, so the bottom's not going to be seen. It's going to be stuck inside the actual gun bit, so it's going to sit in there quite nicely. I might raise the front up a little bit just to make it fit in, but on the whole I'm quite happy with that. So we need to add some details to this, so we're going to use some of the strips that I used before. That's going to have a bit that goes all the way around here in the front, and it's going to have a wedge. Now I happen to have this wedge, which was the bit cut off the back here to make the wedge there, so I'm going to put that on the front there to make that started, and I'm going to get another little piece of thin foam just to go over the top of it to create the flat bit that comes up. There's also going to be two little I'd say like dials that sit on the back here. For that again I'm using this is the bit that I cut off the bottom of this one. So I've got the bottom of this bit, I've just cut it in half, put it on its side. I'm going to add some details of some little bits of foam running down there to make it look like it's got some traction, and then they're going to go on there. Now I'm thinking I might actually want to cut into this foam because this is only stuck around the sides. This top bit of foam is actually loose, so I could cut into this 5mm foam very carefully, take that bit out, and then these can recess into that and won't stick up quite so far. So that's what we're going to attempt to do with that. So we're going to add the details, then this can go onto there, and then we'll make a start on the barrel. Right, so I've got that in and it's really starting to take shape now. I'm really kind of liking the look. So we've got the strip down the front, I've recessed the two little wheels in the back here, and I put the wedge on. I've actually put the wedge in the opposite way around to how I had it, so it kind of flares up, and put a straight piece of foam on the front there. So I'm quite happy with that. So all we've got to do now is we're going to work on the barrel, and then it's all going to be ready for coating and painting. So for the barrel I've got this little bit of tubing. This is actually cardboard tubing. I was desperately trying to find something the right size that I wanted. I couldn't find it in PVC, but I found this. This actually came out the middle of my tin foil wrapper in the kitchen. So that's going to go on the front there, but what we're going to do is we're going to cover it some bits first. So I'm going to create some foam bits to create the turn tiles on this, and then I've got some little bits of tubing which we're going to stick in. I've cut some circles of foam. As you can see, they're already in here, but I've just pushed them in for the moment. So we're going to make the holes in there for the bits, and then that's going to stick in the front there. It's going to hold them in place. So working on the barrel, I've cut this bit of tubing. This is 3.5 centimeters long, 35mm, which is going to stick on the end. And then what I've done is I've cut this strip of foam. This strip of foam is enough to wrap this as the barrel. This is going to be our little turnstile bits. And then what I've done is I've taken the length of it and created 8 sections in it, and then every other section I've given it a couple of mils line down the middle of it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the ruler, and we're going to just score in these lines with the scalpel. So just not cutting through it, just resting into the foam. This will become apparent as we get towards the end. So I've scored them, and then I cut it down. So I cut it in half, and then I cut the other half in half again. So that gives us our 3 different sizes, and what these are going to be, the two small ones are going to be the two outside rings, and the big one will go in the middle. And as you can see, as I wrap it around there, those little score marks start to open up and look like the little grip marks. And once we've added a bit of heat to that as well, they'll open up a little bit more and be a little bit more prominent. And so we're just going to work around, and because we've done it as one strip, they should reasonably all line up and look quite good. I've done these bits around here, so now you can kind of see why we did it in one. So I kind of wanted these to line up to make it look like it was all one part. Obviously I've glued all the bits together and they'll all go on the bottom, so that won't be seen that much. But that's our outside of the barrel. Now for the inside bit, I've cut these two tubes here, one slightly longer than the other, one's slightly thinner than the other. They are actually part of the same tube, but it conicals, so I've been able to use this as the bottom end, this is the top end, and it gives me a little bit, and then a little bit of pipe in there. So I'll cut the holes into this disc foam, put them through and glue them in place, and put this one on the back just to support, just to hold everything. So I'm now going to put that in there, so they'll stick out the end there, and then it will go onto the main body of the phaser, and then all we've got to do is coat and paint it. Right, I just wanted to show you it all together because I am completely blown away by how well this looks. It was looking quite good, but as soon as I just put the barrel on, it just looked absolutely perfect. So there we are. So it's coming along. All it's literally left to do now is I'm going to take it away. I'm going to coat it in a thin layer of some wash down latex or PVA just to seal in the foam. I'm going to hit it with the heat gun first, and these will open up a little bit more as well, hopefully. So I'm going to hit it with the heat gun, seal the foam in with the latex, and then give it a primer and a coating of a nice black paint, and then we'll come back and we'll add the finishing touches to it. Okay, the roadworks are back, so I do apologise if you can hear that in the background. So it's been a few days. What's happened is this has had several coats of a thin watered down latex just to seal the foam. It's then been plastic primed and black painted, and I've left it a good couple of days just to properly set. And as you can see, I think that's really starting to look the business. Obviously I've put a screw into the bottom of the handle here. This has enabled me to be able to hold it while I've been painting and coating, and to be able to hang it up with afterwards. So what we're going to do now is add the final details, and what we're going to do with that is I'm going to use some of these paint pens, and very carefully we're going to paint like the details on here. So we're going to get in the very end of the pen, okay, and just add these details, and just doing little bits and pieces like this really starts to kick this up. I might sort of like give it a couple of goes over just to get it right, and obviously this bit's going to have one. Just want to go really finely, really delicately. You don't want to get it on any of the other bits, and then what we're going to do is we're going to get it in the very corner bits here, just to add a bit. We don't want to get it on the main gun. So we're going to do that with the silver as well, get the silver bits sorted and there. I'm then going to think about what I'm going to do in the central bits of the barrel, because I can't get the pen into that, and obviously one of these want to be silver and one wants to be gold, so it's going to be in the middle there. So we're going to have a think about that, but I'm going to add the rest of the detail, and hopefully then it will really start looking great. Okay then, I have finished this now. Let's see if you can see I managed to get a fine brush, and I managed to get in the cracks there with a little bit of silver and gold paint that's added the finishing details to that, and obviously the work that I did with the paint pens. I let it dry and I gave it another go over the paint pens again, and I think it's really come up quite nicely. You do have to be careful, like a little bit on here I just missed and caught a bit on there, and I didn't notice it straight away. If you notice it straight away, you can get it off with a little bit of damp tissue, but I was a little bit slower, and by the time I realised it had already dried and set. I could probably get a little bit of black paint and go back over that. That's not so much of a problem. I'd added some details around the ends of the barrel as well with the paint pens. I'm not sure if it was really needed on these bits like in the original, but I kind of feel it's defined the end of the barrel there just a little bit more, and there should be some details on here. But considering I've built this entirely from foam, It was quite good. I've also created a little shoe piece for the bottom here. This is just a bit cut out from the bottom there, beveled the edge and then glued it on. That's kind of covered that bottom area and where I put the screw in, so that's all now sealed up. So there we go. On the whole, when I sort of worked this out, I actually probably spent about under £5 on this for the materials, the glue and the paint, because it was quite a quick and easy build. It's a small little handgun. It doesn't really need much in the way of paint and primer, and then obviously the paint pens and the foam, you know, the sheet matting that you use, it comes out quite nicely. But there we have it, the StarTrek Discovery phaser. A nice little almost retro kind of modernisation of it. I think looks really quite nice. I'm quite happy with how this has come out. There's a few little bits I'm not quite so happy with. If I was to do it again, obviously I can rectify that, because now I know what I'm doing. But this whole build was a bit gradual. I'd never built one before, so as I was doing the tutorial it was all new for me. But for a first attempt I really quite like this, and it's come out really nicely. So there we have it, this phaser. So please like, please subscribe. It'd be wonderful if you could follow us. You can check us out on Facebook, send us a message if there's anything you want to see how we build. We can try and do a tutorial on that as well. But thanks for watching, and I will be with you in the next video very soon.